Hello, good morning everyone, and welcome to this morning's webinar on the Blueback tracker. Today we're going to focus on how Tracker fits together with ArcGIS and how we can use that together in a couple different workflows. So what I intend to focus on today is sort of three little ArcGIS workflows together with the Tracker data, just to show you how you can use ArcGIS for your Petrel data management by making use of the spatial extension. So I'm going to show a little workflow about comparing data coverage firstly, and I'm going to show you how you can build up views of different layers together in Arc. And then I'm going to show a little example on data integration and show you how to bring in some extra metadata for the seismic cubes and build up a nice little mini sort of database of seismic using ArcMap and Tracker. And finally, I'm going to show a little data quality control workflow. So I'm going to compare two layers together to see whether there are any missing data between two layers. Just to mention, we're going to have our Tracker annual user group meeting in a couple of weeks' time in London. So if you want to see some of the stuff in a bit more detail, find out how some other customers are using the Tracker, and have a general discussion about Petrel data management, then this user group meeting is a good place to do that. In addition, everything that I should show today will be uploaded to the Media Center. So if you go to blueback-reservoir.com and click on the Media Center, you'll find previous webinars on the Tracker, some other how-to videos on different things around the Tracker, and our other products. So just to mention, today we're using GoToMeeting, and you can open and close your panel using the arrow like so. You can change between full screen and window. By default, everyone is muted, so please submit your questions in the text dialog here, and we'll have a quick Q&A at the end of the session, and we'll upload the recording of today's webinar to the website. So before I start, I'm just going to check. I have some question here. Someone has raised a hand, but everyone else seems to be okay. So I think everyone can hear me, so I'll just continue on. So as you know, the Tracker acquires simplified geometries for the main data types when you scan your Petrel projects. And these objects are transformed into a single CRS, allowing us to compare the different Petrel projects and compare how different CRSs might be affecting the data. Once this is done, we can then add them into ArcMap as query layers, and these layers come in as a query, but they behave like any other object in Arc. So this allows us to make a number of quality control, comparison, and analysis workflows using our Petrel data with respect to other layers that we have. And the idea is that we want to bring the functionalities of GIS to working with your Petrel data. So in order to do this, you need to have a spatial extension license as part of your Tracker, and in your scanning options you specify which of the objects you would like to include in your spatial analysis, and of course which default CRS you can use. By default we use WGS84, so that transforms all the data into WGS84, making it possible to compare across different zones or regions. Projects in Petrel that don't have a CRS will not get any spatial information collected, but you can assign a default CRS if you want to, for example, spatialize all your pre-2010 Petrel projects. Finally, once that's done, you add the layers into ArcMap by choosing, starting ArcMap, choosing a map, and then saying File, add data, add query layer, and then you define your connection to your tracker database. Once you do that, you then get a choice of layers, and anything with this spatial prefix can be added into Arc. So that includes a view for each of the data types like seismic cube, seismic lines, interpretation, etc. But it also contains some calculated views from the tracker like mispositioned wells and non-reference wells. So there's a lot of detailed information that can be extracted from these views. Of course, it's possible to create your custom views based on your tracker database. So this can be constrained by an area of interest, a data type, and also a tag, which are some stamps that we use to distinguish projects or groups of projects from one another. So in the end result, you get something like this. On the left-hand side, I have an example of reference projects versus working projects for my two areas. So I have my northern Norway reference project in green and my southern in blue here, and the red are wells from my assets, and I also show the outline of the reference projects here. And on the right hand side, I'm showing just an example using seismic cubes, where you can use Arc to color by some of the properties, and in this case it's colored by the survey name. So with that, I'm now just going to talk you through the basis of my exercises and then do a short demo. So the first exercise I'm going to show is how to split the data from the tracker into different layers using the tags. So I'm going to use the Spatial Query Manager, and I'm going to use my tags in my tracker here. Secondly, I'm going to show you how to integrate some more metadata into Arc. So in this example, I'm going to include some additional attributes for the seismic, like the storage type, the bulk value type, and some documentation. So I did that by creating a spreadsheet of the seismic cubes from the tracker bulk files to give me the additional metadata that I wanted. And then for each of the surveys, I also downloaded a PDF here from the NPD, which has some background information on processing dates and other information, etc. And I then used a spreadsheet to link those two together, so I have the kind of mini Excel database about my seismic metadata. Finally, I'm going to show you how to use a small quality control workflow using two different layers. In this example, I have firstly the public wells, which again I've collected from the NPD. So I had a shapefile of all the public wells in Norway, and I'm going to compare that with what's in my tracker and find out the wells that I need to load from the NPD into my reference project to get a more complete data set. So I'm now going to jump into the tracker and ArcGIS and show you how this works. So the first thing I want to show you is my tracker web, and when I come in here to the projects menu, you can see that I have a set of different asset projects and reference projects. And what I want to do is firstly tag this new project here. So I'm going to click on this one and tag this project as Ardmore. And what I want to do is I want to compare the wells in this project with what's available in my master projects. So next I'm going to come to my tracker admin and to the Spatial Query Manager here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a area of interest, and I'm just going to make it over Europe because I know I want to work in this area. Secondly, I'm going to choose a data type like so, well, and I'm then going to select my Ardmore tag. And I'm going to create a view of wells for the projects containing this Ardmore tag. So I just press create, and then I get a little message saying that my view is created. Then I can come over to ArcMap, and I can say File, Add Data, Add Query Layer, and then I can connect to my tracker database. And if I scroll down my list of available views, you'll see that I have my Ardmore wells here, which I can drag and drop. And then I'll say Ardmore wells, and then just press finish. And you see it calculates the extent of this layer. And then what I can do is I can click on this and say zoom to layer. And here I see that I have a couple of wells. If I just change the symbology here, I probably have a few more surface locations. Here you go. And I can then right click and say open attribute table. So what you can see is I've created a layer just based on a tag, this Ardmore tag, which contains all the wells in projects containing the Ardmore tag, and you can see that it's roughly 8 pieces of data. Then what I can do is I can display my well query from my entire tracker database, including the reference projects and master projects. So I can see that there's some additional data in this area that I want to get into my Ardmore project. So this way of subdividing projects using tags lets you build up some different layers for comparison purposes inside of Arc. So if I open this wells layer here, you can see that it contains all 538 wells, and I can make an easy comparison with the 8 that are in the Ardmore project. The next workflow I'm going to show is how to add some more metadata to this seismic layer. So I've imported my seismic cube layers from my tracker here, and you can see that if I click on the box here, for example, I get some information about the seismic cube, the survey name, and the project it belongs to. And I have in this list quite a few different seismic cubes. So what I'm going to do is import a spreadsheet with some additional information about these seismic cubes that I can then append to my table to allow me to create a nicer source of information here. So the first thing I'm going to do is say add some data, and I'm going to choose my Excel spreadsheet that I've created. I can show you what that looks like. It's simply a list of the seismic files, the additional information about their storage type and formats, a link to the location of where the seismic file resides, and a link I've copied from the NPD on some background information about the survey. So I can simply then add this sheet into Arc, and in my seismic cubes layer I can say I want to perform a join, and I'm going to add here. So I'm going to say join the attributes from a table using name from my seismic spreadsheet, and also join based on the name. Press OK. And then what you can see when I open my seismic cubes layer is I now have, for the seismic that was present, a list of additional metadata, including the storage type, bulk value type, and of course links to the documentation and seismic file that I included in my spreadsheet. Then what's nice about Arc is that I zoom in on some different areas. I can then query a specific cube, and I get a list of the cubes in this area, and again it contains my additional metadata I've included from my spreadsheet, and here I can click on my link to documentation and open up my PDF of the seismic survey that I've collected. The final workflow that I want to show before opening up for some questions and answers is how to compare two layers together to see where I have missing data. So in this example I've constrained my layers to a small license block area using this rectangle and the clip function. So I then have a set of license wells from Petrel, which I've imported from the tracker, and a shapefile of public wells which I've downloaded from the NPD. And what you can see is that there are more wells available in the public dataset than I have in my Petrel projects. So I want to extract some way a list of the wells that are missing in my Petrel projects. So I can do that by saying select by location, and I want to select the wells from my public dataset that are not in my Petrel layers, and I just press OK here. And if I then open the attribute table of the public wells, you can see that it's selected 12. So 12 of the wells are consistent with what's in my Petrel projects, but however, if I invert this selection like so, then you can see that I have 4 of the wells here which are not present in my Petrel layer. So I can then, for example, click here and say export, and export the selected records to a new table, and then I get the table of the exact wells that I'm missing from my Petrel projects. So just as a quick recap on my webinar here, I've shown that we can use the spatial extension to make a coverage map for the different data types that we have in the tracker, and that by comparing with different sources, in my case some layers from the NPD, I can quality control the data. And then I've also shown that by using the tags we can split down the layers into convenient subsets which allow us to do some more detailed analysis of the data. So just a quick recap on my 3 different workflows here. I used a tag to split down my Ardmore wells into a small layer, and then compared that with the layers from my reference projects and asset masters. I then showed you a workflow where I can include a spreadsheet with some additional seismic metadata, and using the join function in Arc I could make a better seismic map with some interesting metadata and links to documentation. And then I showed how we can use some of the comparison functionality in Arc to make a comparison between 2 different layers and extract a list of objects that are not present in one of the layers. So that will allow me to collect a list, in this example, of wells that are missing from my reference projects. Just as a reminder, we'll of course upload today's webinar so you can go back through at your leisure, and you'll find it on our Blueback Media Center. We'll also have a more detailed dive into the spatial extension as part of the tracker user group meeting. So if you want to see a bit more about what you can do with the spatial extension and how it ties together, you can see it if you participate in the user group meeting. And finally, in the last 5 minutes or so that we have, I'll open up for any questions and answers that I have in the panel. So if you have any questions, please just submit them now. I have a question which says the well layer from the tracker is defined as a polyline rather than a point. So in the tracker, when we import the wells, we can have either the deviation of the well, so you can compare the deviation, or you can import the wells as a well header, and then you just get some point data set. So the tracker has both those options to import wells as either a deviated well or just a surface location. Any more questions from the audience? If there's any more questions, you can submit them, and we can always answer them by email or submit them through our support channels. So I'll just give it a minute for more questions, and if anyone else wants to just sign off, let me just say thanks very much for attending, and please let us know if you have any questions. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any more questions, so thanks everyone for joining, and we'll send out a link containing today's video later on today. Thanks very much, and goodbye.